They wield massive fortunes, measured in the hundreds of billions. Their reach spans from the daily software in our pockets to Las Vegas casinos. We are not just talking about wealth. These dynasties literally shaped the American economy for generations. But how were these vast empires built? And who truly sits at the peak? Let us trace the history of the 10 wealthiest Jewish dynasties across the United States. From the historic shtetls of Eastern Europe to the server farms of Silicon Valley, these chronicles of American wealth reveal a relentless, driving ambition, unprecedented, game-changing innovation, and absolute grit. Some of these names are famous. Others remain in the shadows, but their legacy is felt everywhere. They stand as financial titans and key architects of the digital era, commanding the realms of entertainment and real estate. Together they hold an astronomical fortune, approaching nearly $1.5 trillion. These archives record more than just money. They outline the rise of modern global capitalism. Each saga began by identifying crucial market gaps long before rivals did, taking massive gambles and ultimately transforming entire global industries forever. Their journeys were incredibly diverse. Some rose from fierce immigrant determination, others from sheer academic genius, and many through an uncompromising, ruthless, competitive drive. Their chronicles are deeply tied to escaping persecution and enduring family alliances, though some empires eventually fractured under the sheer weight of absolute success. Now we unveil the historical records behind this unparalleled concentration of power. We shall trace the modest, often disputed origins of these immense fortunes, chart their rapid rise, and observe where these influential dynasties stand today, counting down from number 10 directly to the undisputed number 1. Prepare to witness the breathtaking magnitude of their global empires and their profound, ongoing impact on our everyday lives. Beginning at number 10 is an extraordinary figure who represents the classic immigrant story on an epic scale. A powerful industrialist whose vast empire spans from heavy chemicals to the modern music streaming platforms, holding a massive fortune estimated at $26.5 billion. Sir Leonard Blavatnik remains a dominant force in modern global commerce. He was born Leonid Valentinovich Blavatnik to a Jewish family in Odessa, which was still within the Soviet Union back in 1957. The rigid Soviet system strictly governed his formative years. Though his family later relocated to Yaroslavl, economic opportunities remained severely restricted. Desperate for freedom, they applied for exit visas to pursue a brand new life, escaping the Soviet Union in 1978. Upon landing in America, his rise proved absolutely meteoric. He adapted rapidly, securing a master's degree in computer science at Columbia University and obtaining United States citizenship in 1984. He sharpened his commercial instincts by securing an MBA at the prestigious Harvard Business School in 1989, forging the tools needed to dominate the volatile, high-stakes realm of post-Soviet commerce. By 1986, Blavatnik established Access Industries, a New York conglomerate destined to drive his incredibly diverse investment portfolio forward. His definitive breakthrough materialized following the sudden collapse of the Soviet Union, where cautious Western investors feared the lawless Wild East. Armed with his native tongue and cultural savvy, Blavatnik plunged straight into the chaotic grab for newly privatized Soviet wealth. He allied with an old friend from his Moscow University days, Viktor Vekselberg, and alongside Mikhail Friedman's Alpha Group, the massive AAR consortium was born. Together they seized massive control over Russian aluminum and oil, valuable assets sold off cheaply by the collapsing state. Their crown jewel was a massive stake in the oil giant TNK-BP, a joint venture with British Petroleum that pocketed Blavatnik a reported $7 billion when they finally sold their massive shares. Yet this titan's ambitions stretched far beyond Russia. With strategic foresight, he moved his fortunes into stable Western economies. In 2011, his legendary play unfolded, as Access Industries bought Warner Music Group for $3.3 billion in cold cash, cementing his legacy as a global mogul. Suddenly, he controlled an immense musical catalog, spanning from rock legends Led Zeppelin to modern icon Ed Sheeran. His expanding empire also holds key shares in LyondellBasell, a global leader in plastics, chemicals, and industrial refining, alongside the sports streaming giant DAZN, seeking to become the Netflix of global sports. Now, Sir Leonard Blavatnik holds prestigious dual American and British citizenship, standing tall as a knighted philanthropist, recognized by the British Crown for his massive charity work. Records show his family foundation pouring millions into legendary institutions, such as Oxford, Harvard, and Tel Aviv University. From the lawless Siberian frontiers to the highest global boardrooms, his epic rise cements him as one of the most dominant and calculating corporate giants of modern times. Let us turn our gaze to a dynasty synonymous with the glowing skylines of Vegas and Macau. The powerful Adelson dynasty, now led by matriarch Dr. Miriam Adelson, commands an colossal empire built on gambling with a vast net worth, sitting between $32.1 billion and $40 billion. But history remembers this fortune as a legendary rags-to-riches saga, forged by the late Sheldon Adelson, born in 1933 to a poor Jewish family in Boston's rough Dorchester neighborhood, whose legendary drive awoke early. At just 12 years old, he borrowed $200 from an uncle just to secure newspaper sales on a busy street corner. He was a relentless entrepreneur, testing his luck in dozens of industries, from selling candy machines to packaging hotel toiletries and running charter tours. But his true brilliance manifested when he saw the massive future of trade shows. In the late 1970s, Adelson launched the legendary Computer Dealers Exposition, known as Comdex. While legacy computer conventions focused entirely on massive industrial mainframes, Comdex offered the rising personal computer market its very first global stage. Their debut show in 1979 was modest, hosting only 167 exhibitors and 4,000 visitors, but the timing was immaculate. Backed by the rising star power of young figures like Bill Gates, Comdex grew exponentially, cementing its status as the absolute largest tech show on Earth and the mandatory yearly gathering in Las Vegas every single November. At its historical peak, attendance crossed over 200,000 people. By 1995, they sold Comdex to Japan's SoftBank for an astonishing $862 million, meaning Adelson's own take-home cut surpassed $500 million. The records show he realized the true wealth lay beyond just running the show. It was about owning the venue, the rooms, the dining, the entire kingdom. This marked the historic birth of the integrated resort concept. In 1989, he acquired the legendary Sands Hotel, the old stomping ground of the legendary Rat Pack, and just 1 year later, the massive Sands Expo and Convention Center rose right beside it. Then came the teardown, clearing the way for his crowning masterpiece, the Venetian, which officially opened in 1999. Complete with an indoor Grand Canal and real gondolas, inspired by a romantic Italian honeymoon with his wife, Miriam. His grand vision expanded globally. While rivals hesitated, Adelson wagered everything on Macau when the territory finally broke up its gaming monopoly. The Las Vegas Sands Corporation constructed mega resorts that transformed that small island into the world's absolute richest gaming hub, completely dwarfing Las Vegas. He replicated this triumph in Singapore, erecting the stunning Marina Bay Sands. When Sheldon passed away in 2021, his widow, Dr. Miriam Adelson, a prominent medical researcher, stepped up. She inherited full command of the empire. Under her guidance, they maintained their massive holdings, cementing her role as a dominant force in national politics. She is recorded as one of the ultimate financial backers of conservative and pro-Israel political causes. Then, in a stunning move in late 2023, She pivoted by acquiring a controlling majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks basketball franchise. Historically, the family has since unloaded their legendary Las Vegas properties to focus strictly on their massively profitable empire in Asia, securing a dynasty that began on a humble Boston street corner and now stretches globally. Our eighth spot belongs not to a single individual, but to one of America's absolute wealthiest and most formidable dynasties. The Pritzker family, holding a massive fortune exceeding $40 billion. Their grand influence reshaped global hotels, major industries, and modern politics. This is a multi-generational chronicle of relentless immigrant ambition, sharp deal-making, and intense, highly public family feuds. The empire traces back to Nicholas Pritzker, a Jewish immigrant who journeyed to Chicago from near Kyiv back in 1881. He mastered the English language, fought his way through law school, and established his own practice. Later, his sons and ambitious grandsons, Jay and Robert and Donald, seized that family foundation and multiplied it beyond all expectations. This third generation would ultimately launch the family name into the stratosphere. Jay and Donald were the visionaries who saw immense potential in roadside motor hotels, targeting the rapidly growing class of corporate travelers in the jet age. In 1957, they acquired their very first Hyatt property, a humble airport motel in Los Angeles, recognizing its rooms were constantly booked solid. Rapid expansion soon followed. Yet their defining historic breakthrough came with the Hyatt Regency Atlanta. Donald envisioned building a grand hotel that served as an attraction in its own right, boasting a massive 21-story open atrium that was completely unlike anything the world had witnessed. That majestic space became their signature trademark, forever redefining modern lodging through stunning architecture and pure drama. Meanwhile, the records highlight their brother Robert as the true industrial titan. He quietly forged his own manufacturing empire under the Pritzker banner, consolidating an absolute empire of heavy manufacturing and industrial service giants. This massive industrial beast, the Marmon Group, it soon devoured over 100 different businesses, churning out everything from massive railroad cars to delicate medical gear. Hyatt's glittering prestige merged with Marmon's raw industrial muscle, forming a truly unstoppable, diversified financial juggernaut. For decades, this colossal family fortune remained locked behind a highly secretive web of complex private trusts. But as the 21st century dawned, the fourth generation declared this giant structure was completely broken. This is where you and I witness the bitter breakdown of their legendary dynasty. A 10-year crusade split the massive multi-billion-dollar treasury among 11 different heirs, forging multiple individual billionaires in the process. In our present day, the Pritzker legacy stands fully exposed. Thomas Pritzker commands the board as executive chairman of Hyatt Hotels, while other family members march straight into public service. Penny claimed the office of United States Commerce Secretary, while J.B. grabbed the governor's seat in Illinois. Their massive charitable giving remains legendary, crowned by their elite architecture prize, universally hailed as the absolute Nobel Prize of Design. Now you and I pivot to a legendary titan whose name is a powerhouse on Wall Street. Michael Bloomberg, the mastermind who engineered the ultimate terminal, amassed a mind-blowing personal fortune of around $104.7 billion. His chronicle shows a masterclass in hunting down critical gaps and weaponizing tech to rule the market. Born in 1942 to a modest household, his father worked tirelessly, keeping books for a local dairy. He fought his way through Johns Hopkins University on hefty loans, working as a parking lot attendant, then securing a Harvard business degree. In 1966, he fought his way into a basic role at Salomon Brothers, buried deep in the dark back office, manually counting physical paper stocks inside a cold vault. Yet his raw ambition and competence rapidly drove him up the ranks. Striking partner by 1972, he seized control of trading and, most importantly, their emerging tech network. Then, in 1981, A corporate buyout changed everything. The ruthless new bosses immediately threw him out. Cast aside at 39, but armed with a massive $10 million parting gift, instead of begging for another desk, he chose to build his own kingdom. In his expert analysis, the entire financial sector was drowning under raw, messy data, yet completely starved for instant, real-time insights delivered directly to their screens. His blueprint: a single computer terminal weaponizing live prices and elite analysis to give traders a massive advantage. And thus, the empire of Bloomberg was born. This iconic terminal completely shattered and rebuilt modern finance. Back then, bankers collected lagging intel from countless disjointed sources, always too late. But Bloomberg offered them a lightning-fast, streamlined, deeply integrated network with monstrous analytical power, transforming it into the ultimate weapon for market warriors globally. This genius subscription blueprint secured an unstoppable, endless flood of wealth. Decades later, Bloomberg stands tall as an absolute titan of global finance, and the man himself still commands an 88% empire. But his massive ambition outgrew mere business. In 2001, right after the terrifying 9/11 attacks shook the nation, he took power as the city's 108th mayor, ruling for 3 terms. Realizing a Democrat run was hopeless, he strategically flipped to the Republican side. Then he dropped over $73 million of his own massive fortune into it. In office, his rule was strictly defined by cold, hard data. He immediately outlawed smoking inside every bar and diner. He rebuilt massive sections of town, while successfully slashing crime rates and boosting survival rates. Naturally, he eventually targeted the White House itself in 2020. Yet history might remember him best for his colossal charity. He committed to the Giving Pledge, transferring over $17.4 billion to those in need, funding massive efforts in public health, global warming, and schools, aiming to eventually donate every last cent, leaving his entire empire to a massive public trust one day. Taking our 6th spot is a legend who forged an international tech dynasty from his humble university dorm, utterly rewriting the rules of the entire computer industry. Meet Michael Dell, the mastermind sitting atop Dell Technologies, who commands an eye-popping treasure chest of over $145 billion. His name brands millions of screens worldwide, all born from a single spark of genius. Raised in 1965 Houston by a hardworking Jewish family, young Dell was obsessed with tech and business early on. Even while studying pre-med at the prestigious University of Texas in Austin, he quietly launched a wild side hustle right out of his bedroom. He saw he could buy cheap excess parts, build superior clone machines, and ship them directly to buyers, completely bypassing heavy retail markups. His tiny project, called PCs Limited, was soon pulling in $80,000 every single month. At only 19 years old, absolutely convinced his formula would conquer the market, he abandoned his studies with just $1,000 in hand to build the legendary Dell Computer Corporation. But his genius wasn't merely building machines. It was in transforming the supply chain. His direct-to-buyer system changed the game. Back when PCs went through an endless, exhausting chain of middlemen and greedy storefronts, with each driving prices up, Dell sold directly over phones and early web portals. This completely destroyed those retail price hikes. But the real masterstroke was giving buyers the power to customize their own systems. This dynamic, built-to-order tactic meant he carried virtually zero backlog. In an era when hardware prices plunged daily, sitting on parts was a death sentence. His lean strategy turned that risk upside down, granting him an unbeatable pricing edge. By 1992, at the young age of 27, he stood as the absolute youngest CEO on the Fortune 500 list. The road was never easy. As cheap clones flooded the market and smartphones took over, his expansion slowed. So in 2013, to escape the brutal pressures of public shareholders, he pulled off a daring stunt, taking his giant private in a colossal $25 billion buyout. This masterstroke allowed him to pour massive wealth back into their future. Then, in 2016, he executed the single greatest technological acquisition in history, swallowing up data storage giant EMC for roughly $60 billion. This legendary gamble transformed a basic computer maker into the modern titan Dell Technologies, a dominant force stretching from everyday laptops to the corporate cloud networks that run today's giant corporations. Today, he still rules as chief executive, and his massive fortune, run through his personal investment firm, has skyrocketed alongside the company's historic rise. Charging straight into our number 5 spot is a titan known for raw, explosive energy. An absolute devotion to Microsoft. And a mountain of wealth so massive it defies belief. Steve Ballmer, the legendary former chief executive of Microsoft and current owner of the Clippers, controls a truly staggering net worth, estimated to sit between $151 billion and $160 billion. His deep Jewish heritage traces directly back to his mother. Born in Detroit, his father worked as a manager at Ford Motor Company. His entire destiny shifted at Harvard when he ended up living down the hall from a brilliant young student named Bill Gates. While Gates famously abandoned his studies to build Microsoft, Ballmer actually completed his degrees in math and economics before taking a corporate job at Procter & Gamble. He later headed to Stanford for business school, but in 1980, Gates came calling. Gates persuaded his old friend to leave Stanford and join his incredibly small, rising software startup as its 30th employee and very first business manager. He was no programmer, but his raw, manic energy and razor-sharp business instincts were precisely what Microsoft required to transform from a tiny startup into a global powerhouse. Our history books remember his wild, unhinged personality forever captured in legendary videos, screaming, "Developers, developers, developers!" to thousands of cheering employees. He dominated multiple sectors, running sales and customer support, before taking over as chief executive in 2000, as Gates stepped down. During his 14 years leading the giant, the company's revenues tripled, while net profits doubled. He steered the ship through the brutal dot-com crash and a massive, exhausting antitrust war with the United States government. Under his watch, they unleashed the incredibly successful Xbox gaming brand and swallowed up Skype. Yet historians still point to one devastating failure during his reign, a catastrophic blind spot, where Microsoft completely missed the entire mobile smartphone revolution. As the iPhone and Android conquered the global market, Microsoft's desperate attempts with Windows Phone fell flat. A historic blunder that cleared the way for Apple and Google to seize absolute control of modern computing. Stepping down from tech in 2014, he engineered an unbelievable second act. He purchased the Los Angeles Clippers basketball franchise for an unprecedented $2 billion. Since then, the world has hailed him as an exemplary owner, pouring endless passion and personal billions into his franchise. He even single-handedly bankrolled their brand-new $2 billion masterpiece of an arena in California. Yet his massive empire truly rests on just one remarkably simple decision, keeping his massive pile of company stock for decades as the giant evolved and conquered the cloud under the leadership of his brilliant successor, Satya Nadella. So did the ultimate value of Ballmer's shares, securing his place among the absolute wealthiest on Earth. At number 4, you and I are witnessing one half of the duo who rewired human knowledge forever. Sergey Brin, the brilliant co-founder of Google, commands a mind-boggling fortune that historians in late 2025 estimated to stand between $196 billion and $216 billion. His epic saga began in the Soviet Union, a tale of migration, raw curiosity, and creating a technology that reshaped our world. Born in Moscow back in 1973, His family was highly educated and Jewish. His father, Mikhail, was a gifted mathematician, while his mother, Eugenia, worked as an economist. They survived inside a tiny 3-room apartment, packed tight with Sergei's grandmother. Yet despite their massive intellect, their future was crushed by systemic anti-Semitism. Mikhail Brin was locked out of top-tier universities simply for his Jewish heritage, forced to watch as his grand dreams of becoming an astrophysicist were brutally crushed. After a math conference in Poland in 1977, speaking with Western minds, he realized he had to get his family out. They applied for an exit visa in 1978, which triggered instant, brutal consequences. His father was immediately fired, and his mother was forced out of her career too. After tense months of absolute uncertainty, they were finally allowed to flee in 1979, starting anew in Maryland, with vital aid from the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Walking his father's academic path, young Brin completely dominated math and computer science, capturing his bachelor's degree from the University of Maryland at merely 19 years old. Next, he conquered Stanford to pursue his doctorate in computer science. It was there during a student orientation in 1995 that he first encountered Larry Page. Famously, these two geniuses did not get along initially, finding each other incredibly obnoxious. Yet they soon bonded over a massive, mind-bending intellectual challenge: how to map the chaotic wild frontier of the early World Wide Web. Back then, primitive search engines did nothing but count keyword repetitions on a page. But Brin and Page forged a revolutionary concept called PageRank. A web page's true authority would be judged not by its content, but rather by the sheer quantity and power of other pages pointing to it. Every link was a vote, and a vote from an elite page carried massive weight. Operating out of cramped dorm rooms in a friend's garage, they forged a search engine on this elegant foundation. It worked spectacularly well. They named this creation Google, a direct play on the word Google, representing the number 1, followed by 100 zeros. Google launched its historic public offering in 2004. As we watch this tech empire explode into the colossus we know as Alphabet, Brin turned his brilliant mind toward the company's most futuristic and absolutely wild moonshot projects inside the highly classified lab known as Google X. He stood as the master architect behind self-driving cars, now Waymo and smart contact lenses, along with the infamous Google Glass, before finally stepping down as president of Alphabet in 2019. Yet his seat on the board remains alongside Larry Page, as a controlling shareholder, cementing his eternal influence deep within the company's DNA. Next, you and I encounter the quieter, more enigmatic co-founder of Google, the brilliant mind behind the algorithm that changed everything. With a staggering net worth estimated by our sources in late 2025 at $210 to $233 billion, Larry Page stands as one of the chief architects of our modern digital world. This titan's heritage was deeply rooted in both academia and raw technology. Born in Michigan back in 1973, his mother was Jewish, and both parents taught computer science as professors at Michigan State University. His father, Dr. Carl Page, was a highly celebrated pioneer in the field of artificial intelligence. Young Larry's childhood home was famously cluttered with early personal computers and tech magazines, a chaotic environment that he later credited with sparking his immense creativity. He became the very first kid in elementary school to submit homework typed on a word processor, even as a boy. He was obsessed with dismantling physical machines to map out how they operated, but he was also driven by an unshakable belief that technology could solve humanity's absolute greatest problems, just like his future partner. Page entered the elite doctorate program in computer science at Stanford, It was there that he grew deeply obsessed with the mathematical structure of the internet. Searching for a dissertation topic, he began mapping out the massive web of digital links. Then came his breakthrough. A revelation you and I live with daily. A link was like an academic citation, a vote of authority. By crafting an algorithm designed to trace this entire link architecture, you could instantly rank the actual authority of any web page. This legendary concept, fittingly dubbed PageRank, formed the bedrock of Google itself. In Sergey Brin, he discovered a brilliant ally with the mathematical mind to help him realize it. After they birthed Google inside a garage in 1998, Page acted as the founding chief executive, molding its highly technical, data-driven culture. He stepped aside in 2001 for the veteran Eric Schmidt, only to return a decade later to inject fresh energy. His most monumental executive play unfolded in 2015, as he orchestrated a massive corporate restructuring campaign, birthing a new parent company named Alphabet. This genius strategy isolated the gold mines, like Search Android and YouTube, from the highly speculative long-term moonshots such as self-driving cars and experimental life science ventures. Page took the helm at Alphabet, giving him total freedom to chase those futuristic dreams. By 2019, both founders retired from active duty, passing control of Alphabet to the capable Sundar Pichai, yet their presence on the board endured, retaining ultimate control as majority shareholders through a special class of stock, granting them 10 votes for every single share. They still command over 51% of all voting power, giving them absolute veto power over the trillion-dollar empire you and I rely on every single day. Now our second spot belongs to a titan who completely rewired global social connection, constructing a digital empire serving 3 billion active souls. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder who would ultimately build the Meta empire, commanded an absolute fortune that escalated to unprecedented heights, with 2025 Chronicles placing his massive empire between $221 and $265 billion. This future ruler was born in 1984 in White Plains, New York, raised within a traditional Reformed Jewish household. From his youth, he showed rare mastery over machines, writing complex code in middle school, even forging a private network for his father's office, known to history as Zucknet. He even held a Star Wars-themed bar mitzvah. In his youth, he engineered an early music intelligence called the Synapse Media Player, harnessing early thinking software to decode the musical desires of its listeners. Rejecting lucrative alliances with corporate giants like Microsoft, he chose to enter Harvard University. Within those humble college walls in 2004, a global revolution was quietly set in motion. He founded the Facebook, a private arena reserved solely for Harvard scholars, allowing them to map their social lives. It spread like wildfire across campus. Sensing his true destiny, he abandoned his academic pursuit at Harvard, journeyed west to California, and bound his entire life to erecting this new kingdom. He was not merely a gifted architect of code, but an uncompromising, iron-willed commander. He ruled by a simple creed: move fast and break things. In 2006, he rejected a massive $1 billion offering from the giants at Yahoo. If we look back, this seemed like utter madness. Yet it was a masterstroke of genius. He embarked on a relentless campaign of conquest to secure absolute power over the mobile age. He orchestrated the capture of the popular photo arena Instagram, paying a seemingly absurd ransom of $1 billion in 2012, before stunning the global markets by claiming the messaging empire of WhatsApp for a massive $19 billion in 2014. Chronicles now record these moves as the most brilliant conquests in commercial history, crushing his rivals and securing the loyalty of the next generation of digital citizens. By 2021, as heavy public scrutiny descended upon his empire concerning its power over nations, he declared a radical shift to secure the future, rebranding the entire corporate realm as Meta, pledging countless billions of dollars to construct a virtual realm called the Metaverse, a digital dimension to replace reality itself. Though this frontier remains largely unformed, his parallel aggressive investments in artificial intelligence yielded magnificent triumphs. This digital triumph propelled his stock and personal treasury to unprecedented heights. Alongside his life partner Priscilla Chan, he swore to the legendary Giving Pledge, vowing to disperse 99% of their massive holding in Meta, gradually channeling it through the Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative. Let us now turn to the most prosperous Jewish lord in American history, a titan whose vast wealth arose not from public networks or searches, but from the invisible foundational structures powering our entire digital age, holding an immense and constantly expanding fortune that has reached terrifying scales, with historical consensus from 2025 charting this vast hoard between $276 and $393 billion. His name is Larry Ellison, the legendary architect and leader of Oracle, and his rise is every bit as epic as his public legend. Let's travel back to New York City, 1944, where a boy was born to an unwed Jewish mother. Surviving a brutal bout of pneumonia at 9 months old, he was promptly given up for adoption. A family in Chicago, his mother's aunt and uncle, eventually took him in, growing up in a cramped, modest, two-bedroom apartment on the city's tough South Side. The young Ellison clashed constantly with an adoptive father who coldly claimed he would never amount to anything. He was brilliant but highly rebellious, dropping out of the University of Illinois the moment his adoptive mother passed away, then quitting the prestigious University of Chicago after lasting just a single semester. By 1966, he packed up and headed to Berkeley, California, carrying almost no money, but armed with fierce ambition and some basic computer programming skills. The turning point came during the 1970s, while coding for an electronics firm called Ampex. There he read a groundbreaking paper by an IBM scientist named Edgar Codd, which outlined a revolutionary relational database model. Back then, data was locked inside incredibly rigid, clunky systems. Codd's paper offered an elegant, flexible way to organize and search massive amounts of information. Though IBM foolishly ignored the massive financial potential of their own scientists' theory, Ellison saw it instantly. He knew that a flexible database running on non-IBM hardware would completely revolutionize global business operations. So in 1977, alongside two partners and with only $2,000, he launched Software Development Laboratories, a small outfit that would soon be renamed Oracle. Their goal was clear: build the world's very first commercial database. They shrewdly called their debut product Oracle version 2, tricking buyers into thinking it was already highly stable, and quickly landed the CIA as their first client. Their software quietly became the crucial, invisible engine driving thousands of major corporations, handling vital bank transactions and complex airline flight bookings, all the way to global supply chains. Behind this, Ellison fostered a fiercely brutal, take-no-prisoners sales culture, relentlessly expanding his empire through a long series of aggressive and often hostile takeovers of competing software firms, though he resigned as CEO in 2014. He stayed on as executive chairman and chief technology officer, remaining the true mastermind behind the wheel. Recently, his wealth has absolutely skyrocketed, thanks to a massive early gamble on cloud infrastructure, and as the AI revolution erupted. Every business suddenly scrambled for the immense processing power required to train complex machine models. Oracle already had the hardware, sparking an absolute boom in their specialized cloud services, propelling their stock value and Ellison's personal wealth into absolute orbit. As we trace this history, from Leonard Blavatnik's relentless immigrant hustle to Larry Page and Sergey Brin's world-changing code, from the massive casino empire of the Adelsons to the total market dominance of Larry Ellison, the chronicles of these 10 dynastic families represent the backbone of the American economic engine over the last half-century. Combined, their vast empires, forged in software, data, finance, and global entertainment, equal well over $1 trillion. It is a staggering level of wealth, representing a truly unprecedented concentration of modern economic power. And it all began with just one single revolutionary idea. They believed information could be organized better, that computers could be sold directly, or databases could run our entire world. They saw tomorrow and built it. Bold pioneers, relentless disruptors, and modern-day philanthropists now shaping our world with their immense fortunes. These are the true dynasties ruling from the peak of global wealth. Their vast influence is permanently woven into our daily lives. The very world we live in, the way we seek knowledge, connect with others, store data, and find entertainment, was all built by their hands. So what do you make of this list? Did any names shock you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you want more deep investigations into the webs of wealth and power shaping our world, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss our next chronicle. Until next time.